Now. Hello, coordination call. Maybe last one of the year. Can someone say something just to check if the audio on this is working?
Hello, everyone. Happy holidays.
I can see the green bars moving. Thank you, Manny.
Testing, testing.
1, 2, 4.
Happy solstice, everybody.
Oh, it's the shortest day of the year, isn't it? It's like, what is it? 5 minutes past 4 here, and it's basically dark.
Yeah, here too. Yeah. So the days start getting longer from now on, if you're in the north.
The North. Mate, that is an optimistic way to look at it. I like it. Props to you.
It's my way of getting over the winter blues, Camp.
Cool. So I thought we'd start recording these again like we used to back in the day, and then I'll make the effort of posting them to YouTube, like community calls, just so we can start to maybe lift that transparency. And then I think I'm going to try and give a little bit more structure and maybe a little bit more, forceful around like bookending conversations when they maybe like go too far and kind of like either like push people to have a conversation separate and bring the outcomes back to this call, or push those conversations to the forum, because I think otherwise we've got a habit of all of us collectively of like maybe not getting through the agenda, or really focusing on one item, and we lose space for other stuff. So if anyone's got, straight out of the gate, if anyone's got any thoughts or opinions on how we do that, I would love input on that. Maybe not right now, specifically for that reason. But I will maybe I will open a thread after this call to seek or solicit some input from folks who are on this call about how we might be able to make it better. But looking back on the to-dos from last week, we've only got 2 in here. One was, what are the criteria on when we say yes or no to events? We spoke about ethics, brands, and then goals for the events. We didn't assign a champion to this. I don't personally want to invest my time, or have the time is probably more accurate to invest in this right now. Does anyone want to, who's on this call at the minute? Or is this something that we can maybe like add to a backlog to tackle later?
What's the thing? What is the ask again? Sorry.
Some kind of like criteria or framework for how we decide which events we do and we don't do. So the context is Pocket want to do an event with us in Denver. Hedera also want to do an event with us in Denver. When we were doing Istanbul, we had like 10.
Why can't it go through governance? Why can't it go through governance?
Can do. Do you want to like?
I think it should go through governance. I think this is one thing in 2024 we will need to be more wide open about it works great as a marketing tool where people know we're actually, DD's doing an event. Maybe it'll get more people to attend East Denver. And B, people get to pick the one they like. Maybe they love a Hedera, and we've been kind of gating it as on these coordination calls, or maybe people like Pocket, so we should technically put it up on a forum post, and then we should vote on Snapshot.
Interesting.
This way, the DRI should always be the community. That's my thing.
Okay.
I just feel that shouldn't make that decision. The community should at least be part of that decision.
Yeah, legit. The way that it's set up at the moment is certain powers are delegated to people to make certain decisions, so it doesn't have to go through governance. And like, I think there's a general sentiment that is maybe gone too far one way. Maybe this would be a good topic. Go on.
No, I think that our delegates or our stewards are not working very well. I think they should go through governance. The champion should be the DAO. This is a DAO branding thing, so we should go through the DAO. I should go through governance.
Every single event?
We don't do too many of them.
Okay.
So there's only like there's only a handful a year, and so this is my like way of saying get Snapshot busy and get the forum busy.
Yeah, I agree with you in principle. Does anyone want to do it for Pocket and Hedera?
What's the overarching question that we're trying to answer here, guys? That's the question.
I asked it at the top, but like again, we run the risk of like getting into a really protracted debate. Is what are the criteria on when we say yes or no to events? We get lots of inbound inquiries for events. Which ones do we say yes to? Which ones do we say no to, and why?
So do you want someone to make a document for that criteria, or do you want someone to say yes or no to these events?
Either, right? Like either we empower someone or a group of people to make that choice, or we define what those criteria are up front and put it all up through governance. It's kind of up for debate, really.
I can do both. I can define the criteria and be the yes/no man if you like.
Mm-hmm. So where does that leave us on the current events of Hedera and Pocket?
Which one do I want to say yes to, basically? Pretty much up to me. I guess I get to decide, right? Which one do I love more?
Well, yeah. At the moment, it sits with labs, right? Is where it's kind of in governance. Yeah. So, like, I think it's fine for labs to do that, and then maybe because that's how governance is set at the moment for IRL events. So I think it's fine for labs to make that decision, and then maybe we revisit the criteria of it through governance in the future.
Okay, sounds great.
Anyone else before we move on?
No, there's something on the agenda that sort of addresses this question. So that actually, as far as my personal perspective is, this is putting the cart before the horse with something already on the agenda. So cool. It's something to keep as an open thought. So
cool.
I find a bit disconcerting to see it all.
One final thing is we want to make sure that we're aligned with what is good for the DAO, obviously. Obviously, we know like what protocols are good, and then we know which ones are kind of scammy. So like if it's something kind of odd, it should be like somebody should speak up because it's not a good look for the DAO. Other than that, we kind of know who's legit. The only problem is if we're conflicting with the partners. That's the only time that we ever have to like, oh, we can't partner with these guys because it conflicts with this partner. But for the most part, I think we have a general idea who has good alignment with what we're trying to do and who doesn't.
Sorry, Billy, your mic's really distorted. I can only pick up a bit.
Sorry.
I'm not I can paraphrase for him. Largely speaking, I think we know who are well aligned and are not. Then the other thing is making sure it doesn't clash with existing partnerships. So I think that's a decent argument for it. The partnerships are currently handled by labs. The events, as per the last governance proposal that mentioned events, is currently handled by labs. So by default, I think it's handled by labs at the moment. So it's the labs team that made that decision, unless something else changes in governance. Which anyone can change, of course. And then the second item from last week was about where we're at in terms of finances in the DAO and the owings that we have to Eric and Luann, but also to service providers for the foundation. So where I've got to on this, and I've been speaking with Willavim and Manny a little bit and others, is pulling myself out of labs and creating a budget for the foundation and then tackling that in that budget. So the idea would be, and the kind of the justification behind that is a few things which I'll come to later in the agenda, but that's kind of how I'm planning on dealing with that. So I'll sort of try and paint some color on that when we get to it a little bit later. So not tackled, but has a plan to tackle. So Manny, do you want to give an update on where things are at with labs at the moment?
Yeah, so labs, we're structuring it so in the sense that as money comes in, how do we spread it out to all of our service providers in the DAO, which is Dev and Tell, technical workshops delivered by Bill, newsletter delivered by Jamie, and blog writing by Kay. And we're trying to figure out what the percentage is for, I call these guys the delivery team, and then what we give back to the DAO for every partnership that comes in. So I think the precedence by Academy set somewhere around 19%, so we'll probably follow the same thing. And this way we only make we only get paid for our contributions if the DAO makes money. Other than that, we do not collect a monthly salary, which is it gives the DAO the protection of we're not drawing down on the lab's treasury, so not the DAO, but the lab's treasury. We're not drawing down, and if we don't bring a partner in, and it gives us the delivery team an upside also if we do a really good job of delivering and we get reoccurring partners, and we have a steady flow of events and lovely things for the DAO to participate in.
Sweet. Is there anything specific from the Hero, Near, and Scroll stuff coming up that's worth sharing?
Near, we're just finalizing just one thing that we're just not sure about, which is the 30 days of text. I have an email with them today. Hero, Bill and I have coordinated the timeline, same with Near, and then Bill is working through the Scroll stuff right now as we speak.
Cool.
All dates are set. I just have to talk to Raja about one last thing about the details of the blog contest, but all the dates that we have on the calendar are set.
Perfect. So we in labs are in very good shape. Bill and I have personally touched base too last week on just coordinating his availability and making sure everything is good. And as you can see, it's on the calendar as you're scrolling through it. So and labs is in very good shape.
Cool. And then Kay is taking on the newsletter role. Just for anyone that was wondering, and he's looking at reviewing how it's working and ways that can be improved as well.
Oh, is Jamie bowing out? I didn't know that.
No, so there were two roles in the newsletter. Sylvia was the editor, and then Jamie was one of the writers. I think mostly he was gathering the news around the DAO. So I think the Kay is going to pick up the editor role, and Jamie's going to carry on doing his role that he was doing with Sylvia before.
Excellent. That's even good, better news.
Up for you guys really to decide. Cool. Mark or Pablo, do you want to give a update on Academy?
Sure, can give a quick one. Quick logistics question here, especially if being recorded. Are we comfortable with the name drops here as they relate to when public releases are made or public announcements are made?
Let's do no, and then we'll ask and clarify for next week, just in case.
Okay. Right. So in Academy Land, things are a bit quiet, just being around the holidays here. We are looking to finalize, or at least get the draft up on for the budget up by the end of the day. I think we've just got OKRs left to sort out. If we don't get those polished up, then maybe I'll just publish it with those still needing to be filled in. For sanity check, have anybody else submitted budgets yet?
Labs is working on one, but we have not submitted our budget yet.
Okay. I assume agency hasn't yet either. So yeah, we'll try and wrap that up. The V2 work is still underway. We've made a point to strip down what like the MVP of version 2 is going to be, so that we can release that as quickly as we can. It's not going to have all the elements that are seen in the Figma redesign, and some of those can be tackled as follow-on iterations. Pablo and I have 2 parties in the DMs for beta partner content. So those include Raza and Billy's team, 2 separate teams there. That we owe a response to Billy. Billy, thanks for being the first to fill out the new lesson plan form that we've created. So we're putting a bunch of our content onboarding and like approval and editing processes to the test for the first time. So big appreciation for being a guinea pig there. Yeah, we need to confirm as a team what we think is a realistic launch date for version 2. I'm hoping for mid-January, but again, it's been pretty quiet recently, so we need to rally the team back and come to a comfortable decision there. So I'll be trying to make that happen as soon as is possible, but I'm not sure it can happen this week. I think that's the end. Diablo, feel free to chime in there if you'd like to relay anything else.
All good, Mark. Thanks, mate.
Can I ask a question, Mark? Can you hear me?
Oh, you're asking to ask? Yeah.
yeah, sorry. I opened that thread about getting the role definitions on getting the role definitions down so we can generate those contracts for when you guys start getting paid. Is that happening in the budget proposal and we can kind of lift them out and drop them in, or?
Not specifically, no. So in truth, I forgot that was a next step for us. So I'll put that back on top of the to-do list.
Okay, cool. And that does actually make me think to the labs team as well. It's like we didn't get contracts in place last quarter. Like I think it would be good for us to get them in place next quarter. So I don't know if you guys are thinking about like tighter role definitions, but I think
Why does labs need to do that?
So we should have done it last quarter, right? People sign contracts because it.
But labs is just it's a service provider, so our roles are defined inside of our own organization. We're not a.
You're not your own organization. You're part of the same legal entity, right?
Okay.
Yeah. So the idea is it's for everyone's benefit, right? So you sign it, shows, and you've signed one of these in the past anyway. I think we just didn't refresh them for last quarter. Stipulates your relationship as an independent contractor, limits your liability. It's good for like tax purposes, liability purposes. It's not a big thing. Just get the role description, attach it to the bottom of the contract, sign it.
Yep, I can get everybody in labs to do that before the new proposal goes up.
Nice.
Good.
Yeah, the one it exists pretty cleanly for partnership leads. I'll share that one that we had in the past, and then we can populate it for the others as well.
Yeah, I think mostly just the language needs to change for the delivery team, but yeah, I agree.
Yeah, whatever you guys think is the right like role responsibilities you want to define, really, and then we just copy and paste it in. Okay, cool. Blue, do you want to give us an update on what's happening with Eden in the last week? Is he still there? He is.
Can't hear you, Blue.
And Gordo is not here. Alright, Blue, we'll give it another 20 seconds, mate, and then we'll move on if you can't make it, and we'll come back to you later when you find your voice. Go once. Going twice. Okay, cool. We will move on. So there's a number of governance proposals that have been shipped this week. Thought we'd give people a quick moment to highlight them, say anything they want to say about them, maybe get any brief questions on record, and then kind of guide people back to the forum for them. So Manny, do you want to kick off with the NFT membership proposal? Is there anything you want to kind of like say to folks about that? Any asks or?
Yeah, it was just the big purpose of it is to give an easier way to access access to the DAO. I mean, I made it into a yearly one, but it could be just a one-time fee. I just want to lower the barrier that they have to go and get code token to get inside of the DAO. The fills are usually odd. It's not, we can't post it on our website. Why are we making our community go through tons of hoops? It should be a clear way. And if it's an NFT, we could host on our website, buy the NFT, you get to have access to our community. And then the ultimate goal of mine is that we get to control our, if the NFT sales go well, we get to control our own content. So if we did a lot of NFT sales and our community has a lot of things going on, such as like Academy, I would say like, oh, I would buy a $100 NFT to take an Academy course. Therefore, we're not always have to shill partner content. We can make our own content, maybe even our YouTube content, and we could potentially just sell ad spots. And then the DAO gets to go back to its heritage, where we get to create our own content. Was the real purpose of this NFT thought. Again, I love you all, so please post your comments on the forum. I'm okay to live and die by snapshot.
Anyone want to get any sort of points or asks on here? Well, I've got one, Manny, which is there's quite a lot of questions on the forum now, so I was just curious if you're looking at responding to them or just hoping that it gets elevated. And if you have
I'm going to respond to every single one, and then then once it gets elevated, then everyone can vote their conscience.
For the yearly fee, is it like by season? So let's say it starts January 1st, let's say it expires December 31st. So anybody buying an NFT December 20th only has 11 days to use it, basically, before it gets burnt.
Yeah, I mean, the technical team I was talking to is that the price could technically like gear down, I guess. It would curve down as like, okay, there's only a little bit down, right? There's like 11 days left, so it could be a prorated NFT that way. Again, that was just one initial thought. But do leave that comment, actually, Bill. I think it's great. I'll respond to it on the forum.
Got it, yeah. Just thinking about different issues, if it was quarterly or whatever, but yeah, sounds good. And then giveaways, we have the ability to admin it and all that stuff. It's all more technical stuff.
Yeah, you got it. We'll still have giveaways and things like that we could do with it. But yeah, it was just a way to hopefully try to get control back of not, like, even though I'm in partnerships, I'm trying to get the DAO to like basically get to own their own content, and we're not always shilling the next newest protocol. And if we have a way of source of income to do that, that it is not partner driven, something like NFT sales, community, maybe we have forums that people are answering. Like if you're stuck on a Web3 problem, most people come and post on our Discord, ask for help. So even that is another reason to buy the NFT. There's just a lot of reasons to be a member right now. And that's kind of what I'm highlighting about this proposal, is like try to take our control back, and so we're not so crazy partner driven.
I like it. I should members get rewarded somehow, holders of the NFT. So like if someone's like, it's like the Genesis one, right? They hold it, they hold it forever. They're inactive, but if we need to be reward holders, they get rewarded as well. So I kind of like it. We'll see how the work server does it. I say yay. Only one way to find out, right?
Exactly. But again, let's see how it goes with the governance. Like what Kemp said, I could be the first one voted down in governance, and I'm okay with that. I can deal with that. But I think I'm just trying to like reignite the thinking in the DAO, in the sense like what can we do that's more passively, like Nouns DAO has so much money in their treasury right now, and they have like a war chest. Can we do something like that? And then I think Kemp has an interesting proposal that might be going up around like RPC stuff. So that could be another wave of money coming into the DAO. So it's just more so like I hear everyone's comments, and I don't want to be so partner driven, but I do want to make sure that we have enough like inflow of monetary money coming in to fund people that are doing great things, right? So that was my initial thought.
Like it. We need to check with governance if you can elevate that yourself, or if you need support from another steward. I'm not sure. I didn't quite capture your full answer on what you were planning to respond to on the forum or not. But I think my perspective would be seeing some responses to a lot of those questions would be sort of a need for me to support elevating it, if that is the case.
I think Drop Knowledge is going to support the elevate it for me, just so that keeps it. I don't know if you're no, you're not a co-author, so yeah, you could elevate it for me. I will respond to everybody, and then we can elevate it.
Okay, sorry, I've got my nieces and nephews running around in the background trying to get my attention. You can probably hear them. Okay, cool. Yeah, so I threw one up, DAO membership perks. This is pretty simple. It's basically just replicating the idea that perks had that seemed to have pretty good PMF within the community in terms of just giving a space where members can redeem sort of unique access, discounts, benefits for their membership in the DAO. Really simple implementation. It's just cards on a page on the DAO handbook. People click it. It opens up a D form. D form validates who they are and that they hold the token. And then there's a little make.com integration, like automation, that sends them an email with details on how to redeem it. So there's no real asks on this other than like just folks to leave general comments. Actually, there were 2 specific asks on this were about like what kind of pricing we should put on there. So I'd love to hear thoughts on that. I guess Manny in particular, as partnerships, maybe have a look at that and weigh in would be useful. But other than that, like, it seems really easy, quick and dirty. It's already working, so if anyone wants to test it on the forum post, there is a link to a preview, if I can make this work, to a preview.
The only thing we're not charging anyone to post on it. It is just meant for a portal for.
But I think we.
Yeah,
the proposal suggests that we charge. So there's 2 ways, right? I think in some cases we don't need to charge, or it doesn't make sense charging. So, for example, if CoinDesk want to come back and give away $100,000 worth of tickets to members, like, we'd be nuts to charge them for that because it's just crazy value for the membership. But if like a product comes along and wants to list and get something to members, like, maybe there's value that can be captured there. And then there's other things that we can just add that have like affiliate revenue. So, for example, signing up Coinly or Crypto Tax Calculator, these kind of products that are useful to members where we can agree something with them where we pass on a discount and then also generate some affiliate commission. That's the idea.
My thought would be that we would like reach out to people that we love, and this would be like an olive branch. So like QuickNode, once they start posting on it and they see people are collecting, they're more likely to enter in a partnership to maybe even build a course on Academy or sponsor a youth podcast, etc., etc. So like I would want to use this as a goodwill gesture. So that's one of the feedback I'm going to leave. Instead of charging people, I want to use it as a goodwill gesture to court potential partners for a larger sum extraction out of them.
Cool. Yeah, if you leave that on the forum, that'd be good. It's an interesting one to ponder. I think there's a balance here between like quality over quantity. So maybe I'll respond with some thoughts around that on the forum as well about like price is one way to filter that. Also like individual discrepancy is another way to filter that. But that's an interesting idea actually. And then the value kind of flows to the membership rather than selling a slot, right?
Well, obviously I'm biased because like this is another reason for you to buy the developer now NFT because there's perks on it, right? This is like another way you get a value extraction and you don't charge the partner, but like it's just like, okay, I'm paying $100 a year for the NFT, but like I'm gonna save $49 or $69 on an RPC, and then I got access to like Piablo and Academy teams course one course a year. Like there's a lot of value that way you can start building up.
Yeah, I completely agree. Like, if we can get the DAO, if the DAO wants to rally around the idea of like moving back to a single primitive for like community access with NFTs, and then we all lean into making that membership more valuable, that's another way to like maybe even a better and cleaner way to capture that value. So your proposal's opened up a lot of interesting questions like that in terms of like where and how we provide and sort of generate that value for the DAO. But I like that idea.
Basically, we got 1 year to execute that and like make it successful. Because basically everybody, we're avoiding code, we're avoiding the original Genesis NFT. We're creating this one that's going to expire in a year. So what's going to get people to renew it? Unless we kill it, we're not going to renew it, basically.
Yeah, I agree, and I think there's some interesting questions there on should it expire? Maybe it's just a one-off to begin with, and then if we get it right, demand keeps going up, maybe we make it recurring. I don't know, but I guess that's kind of what we can fight it out with Manny and governance about. Okay, cool. Pablo, do you want to give a quick intro, quick overview of the proposal that you posted?
Basically, I just posted the link in the chat there to the proposal. Basically, the way I see it, the governance isn't working in the DAO. The governance isn't working in Web3. A few years ago, everybody was like celebrating, hey, we can vote on chain. A DAO is a smart contract. I find the whole process very cumbersome from my personal point of view. I find it very intimidating. Number one, seeing a long budget or a long proposal that it takes quite a bit of time for me to actually understand or to digest everything that's in the proposal, and that's only the starting point. Then people such as myself is going to react on the forum to that proposal, and if we're having if we're having successful participation in that process, meaning that if lots of people are getting involved and actually responding to the proposal, and nice that Blue Panda is here, because when the Eden proposal came out, there were a ton of people were engaged. There were like about 100 different people. I can't remember correctly, but there were about 100 people were engaged in that forum proposal before that went to Snapchat, which is brilliant. But that involved a lot of reading. So if participation with this present model is successful, then the workload for all those people just gets bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. And what I'm proposing is like it's like a pilot model for something really, really, really small, like just like 10 people just to start off with to see how the process works. But it would be my hope in a year's time when the DAO was thriving again, that a lot more than 10 people would be involved in creating proposals. And that's the difference with this, is that you have like an overarching question. For example, what was talked about at the very, very start of this meeting about which you were talking about, like, East Denver and having partnerships with Hedera, Near Protocol. What was that question? Somebody help me out.
What events should we and shouldn't we say yes and no to, and why?
Exactly. Yeah. So something like that. Something like that could be like a topic. It's like, okay, we'll have this sort of dilemma in the DAO, and how do we actually solve that? So and we actually create a proposal from the ground up with all the participants in this. It's a bit abstract to try and explain this all. Just have a and look at the proposal that I put forward. If anybody has any questions right now, please ask them. but it's another way of doing governance and rotating the people that are actually involved in creating the proposals, which is this like ongoing idea of diversity and inclusivity, and diversity of opinions, and it also solves the quote unquote problem of a steward, signing themselves up for a quarter or a season or something like that, and then after a few weeks realize that they don't have the bandwidth to actually carry out the task. So this would use a mechanism where we use sortition to actually get members that are actually available to create the proposals, and then we simply put those to snapshot.
Anyone have any questions or comments? Thank you, Pablo. Yeah, I'd encourage it to encourage folks to read it. I've left some comments on there for sure. Governance experimentation, very, very good thing. I've got a few more comments to leave back later, but yeah, I would encourage folks to read that and kind of like grok what Pablo is suggesting and how they feel about it. Yeah, I think the only main concern I put back, question I had, Pablo, is if we're passing this proposal to compel people to do this experiment but no one wants to do it, that feels like the worst outcome, right? So I think my perspective is, the big question for me would be like, how do we avoid that, basically? Like, it's great if we pass a proposal, everyone thinks it's a good idea, but then when it comes to it, no one wants to do it. What does that mean?
Yeah, that's a bummer. Yeah.
that would be like the worst outcome, right? So,
yeah. I just needed to get the idea out somewhere. Like somebody mentioned in this coordination call last week. It's like, just create a proposal. It's like so I did, Mm-hmm. So now it's readable. It's there for people to actually understand, ask questions about it. See if there's any suggested iterations on it. It's living somewhere, now as an idea as opposed to in my head.
Nice, mate. Props to you for doing it. It's the dramatic irony of having to go through the process that you're not a massive fan of in order to potentially change that process. Cool, man. Yeah, I've got some other thoughts I'll leave on the forum later, but yeah, I think that's good. Energy well spent. Cool. Okay, moving on. Kind of like coming out of the history of the DAO here, most people here I think should be aware that a long time ago we did a token swap with Gitcoin, and we've never honoured our end of the deal. For a little background on that, it's never been attempted to be done. I tried to coordinate with Scott at Gitcoin several times to get it done, and we could just never close the loop. This is the original proposal. So we met Coach Jay, who is like governance at Gitcoin in Istanbul, and sort of committed to making it happen. So we've got a chat going on with Coach Jay, Rena, who is their chief of staff, and Kyle, who's the executive director of their foundation and does a lot of their ops stuff, about executing this. And the kind of point here is to like inform everyone that we're doing it and check if anyone has an objection to us moving forward with that, or if anyone has any things they would want to share about us move forward with that. One of the big things that we're trying to figure out is Gitcoin are going to have 500,000 code tokens, which is enough to sway every single vote in the DAO based on like average voting participation over like, I think all proposals pretty much since code was launched. So it'd be interesting to hear if anyone else has a view, but it's my perspective and also most Gitcoin's perspective, but them being able to swing all of our votes is kind of like not cool because it takes all the power away from developer DAO members. So we're trying to think of ways to mitigate that, which could include vesting their allocation. Another idea has been maybe they redelegate the tokens out to other ecosystem players that we may or may not be able to have a role in choosing. but I guess the ask right now is like, is everyone okay if Manny and I keep going forward with that? And then the intention would be to present to the forum what the plan is to execute that for folks to vote it through.
Just to put it out there, I don't think it's really acceptable for Gitcoin to have massive power to sway your votes. So one thing I would suggest is actually capping voting power across the board.
You mean for like all voters, not just Gitcoin?
Yes, correct. So you're only allowed a maximum n number of code, and anything that swings behind that code in addition just won't really matter very much at all. Quadratic voting has the same issue, Gordo. If you have more code, you get more say, and that's an issue we're actually trying to prevent here.
Yeah, I think there's this could actually, because I know William's been thinking a lot about how to reduce people's voting influence in the DAO as well. So maybe like these two things can happen in sync. Mark, I don't know if you got anywhere on like sharing any of those thoughts. Haven't had time to push it forward. Okay, cool. Yeah, I'm completely supportive of that as well personally. I don't know about cap, like, because it's like really arbitrary to set that. The quadratic setup I like because it's like decreasing exponential or whatever the opposite of exponential curve is. But I think it's something that we should explore broadly as the DAO, and then if we solve it for the DAO, it probably solves it for Gitcoin as well. Although maybe they do in their case need a cap because they'll still have like a larger allocation. I don't know how the numbers work well enough, basically.
I mean, personally, I do see Gitcoin's system as an issue because the more money you put into their system, the more you're just worth across the board, and it's all about how much money you got at Gitcoin at the end of the day.
Cool. Yeah, I think this is how we deal with this is like we can't solve it on this call, right? I think we need to. But I completely agree with you that it needs to be addressed, and that addressing it at a DAO level rather than just Gitcoin, as you suggested, I think could be the way to go with it, and then we don't have to have this like unique setup for Gitcoin. That's a really good idea. Okay, cool. Next one here is also from me. So I've been chatting with a few folks, William, Manny, and a few others, about some of the challenges from the last 2 quarters since we implemented sub DAOs, and like not having any kind of budget for the main DAO, but also like focus work on the main DAO that's separate from the influences of the partnership works going on in sub DAOs. So there was work that was allocated to me a couple of quarters ago as part of like trying to make the DAO and its governance processes and operational processes work better, that I've just continuously dropped down the list of priorities because we've had this pressure because we've agreed things with external partners to get stuff done. So what I'm going to propose to see how people feel is I remove myself from labs and then create the budget for the foundation so it's transparent, and focus my time unpaid for the next quarter to do all of that work around the process and governance with everyone to try and get back to a place where it's a bit more fluid for members to be able to contribute. There's been quite a few examples in the last quarter of where folks had ideas that weren't able to go through governance fast enough, for example, that signals, I think, of that stuff not working correctly. And I personally have found it impossible to do both. So the idea is that I completely remove myself from labs. They go on with their own thing. I'll focus on trying to get those things in place that I had the ambition of getting in place last quarter. And then, given it wasn't done last quarter, quite happy to do it unpaid for this quarter. And then we can reassess down the line, seeing where we are.
Hey, Kemp, could you just clarify? Are you leaving a vacuum somewhere? Is that what your suggestion? Or are you just talking about more on a monetary perspective?
No, so the wording that I've written on the draft proposal, I think, does it well, but it's really rough at the moment. So I'm just going to bring it up. I am the director of one of the directors of the foundation, right? And the responsibility to put to make the foundation and the DAO operationally work in theory sits there, right? But then I was also like a core contributor for Labs, which has its own incentives, right? And its own pressures, its own demands. So because those pressures and demands were external on partners, like I found myself being pulled towards delivering on that, so we didn't let down external partners and damage the DAO's reputation or whatever, or not be able to bring funds in. But that's been at the cost, I think, of having this neutral work being done in the DAO, which enables it for everyone, right? So it's it's created a poor incentive structure for what work gets done, if that makes sense. In terms of that was in the scope that I had. So I think if I stay in that commercial work, I'm going to continuously get pulled in that direction for the same reasons. So what I'm suggesting is removing myself for that commercial work, trying to tackle all of these challenges that I think will help the DAO without having to feel the need to be pulled towards that work all the time because I'm involved in the agreement that's been signed. Does that make sense?
It makes sense. I'm very noble. Yeah, it's almost a bit like a conflict of interest in a sense.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and I could feel it the whole time, but I couldn't get away from it because there was always the pressure to do something because we had a partner deal that was on. And I think this is a forcing function for solving that problem, at least starting to.
Hats off to you, mate.
I think I've only got rough raw reactions to it for the moment, but definitely doesn't feel like a realistic permanent solution, right? The work you're talking about doing, basically facilitation and coordination across the DAO, just for primarily healthy functioning is important work. It's not tied to revenue, but it's deserving to be rewarded, right? So I think one of the risks, I guess you could say, is that it's not a good precedent to have somebody doing that work and not being rewarded for it. But I certainly appreciate you volunteering for it. So I think one of the main goals during maybe I should just pose it as a question, how have you thought, or how should we think about making this a long-term sustainable component of the DAO? Maybe I'll just leave it there.
Yeah, that's a super good question, mate. So I guess the overarching goal for me would be a lot of these, I think, underlying challenges that haven't been solved around governance being very slow, it not being really clear for how people can walk a path in the DAO to generate value. And it kind of feels like it's very much constrained to Labs, Academy, and Agency at the moment, not much space for anyone else. And even though in theory via governance there is that space, I don't think people know how to walk that path, right? And even further from that, a lot of with me being in Labs, the DAO's been pulled towards Labs, right? Rather than Labs being pulled towards the DAO, if that makes sense. So I think my goal with it, my overarching aim would be to try and come back from that a little bit and get back to a place like we had in the past where there was good docs and processes that people could follow in order to do X, Y, or Z in the DAO. And then hopefully by doing that, we empower people to be able to do that. And then secondary to that is these kind of there's a word I'm looking for but I can't find it. These kind of consistent touch points in the DAO have also not happened, right? These calls happen but they're not very structured. So I think getting the processes in place and then working with the sub DAOs to get a good structure for these calls, for how we're doing updates and so on, I think will hopefully be healthy for all of those things and get us to a point where the DAO is generating more value next quarter, and then we can kind of relook at this. I don't think it should be free work forever, nor do I think it should be work that only I can do forever. So demystifying maybe what it might look like for me to leave, I think would be a good outcome from that as well, in terms of like someone else becoming the director, what that entails, what risks they're taking on, and so on and so forth.
Yeah, I think it would be time well spent to consider, I guess you could call it like the OKRs for that role, and the goals that you would have for it. Those are saying the same thing essentially there, but to have a clear vision for what you want to accomplish during that limited amount of time, the next quarter.
Yeah, and the point from here is like, in the like broad problem domain in the DAO, and kind of like in the scope of the things that I've just said, like, what would people like to see as well? I don't want to dictate it all. So we've got a member survey that we're working on at the moment to get feedback, but also like genuinely, like, what would people like to see at the DAO level to make sure that it kind of serves everyone, versus like the maybe quite sub-DAO, particularly labs focused we've been for the last couple of quarters.
Yeah, I think a member survey, I think, is an awesome idea. We haven't engaged with like general membership in that way in a long time. You mentioned the question like what members would want to see in general, though. I'm gonna use the spotlight to get to say one very quick thing of what I would like to see, which is a sign of a really healthy DAO, in my view, would be a lot of little experiments successfully getting off the ground. So I would really love to see like small things getting done. So the website getting launched, the merch store getting up, like other little experiments like these writing cohorts happening, or like I love that 30 days of text just like happened quickly. I saw a couple conversations in the coordination channel, and then it was live, and that felt really nice to see, just like it happening. So yeah, I think if there's 100 of those things going on, that feels like a super healthy DAO to me. One of the maybe worth pointing out is that one of the like the caps that we placed on ourselves, somewhat knowingly, is that sub DAO coordinator role, and specifically the reward. So like by removing the reward portion, at least for now and maybe indefinitely, I think that removes that sort of soft cap that we placed on the number of sub DAOs that could form in the DAO. So obviously, like the Treasury can't support a payment to sub DAO coordinators at the moment, and that was like that naturally prevented us from growing larger than a core few groups anyway. So maybe that's a healthy removal in the general sense.
One of the thing I'll note that's actually like kind of related to what Mark is saying is that we should also be quicker to hold people or orgs accountable for not keeping up with KPIs or any of the required stuff. This isn't like specific to sub-DAOs, since we haven't had a real big issue with this in sub-DAOs, but more specifically I'm pointing out like in the past, right, we have stewards and we have, one of our community managers just like not even showing up, and so we just need to be a bit quicker to hold people accountable, keep these processes moving so that we don't come to a grinding halt when, someone's not in the position that they need to be.
Yeah, it's those exact kind of things that I think are important, and like the ambition was always there, but like I can only speak for myself. The pull of feeling the need to like deliver on partner work, but also the particularly for people that were doing partner work in time, the sentiment about people working for free created this like motivational dynamic for me where I found it very, very hard to focus on that stuff and kind of wanted to focus on the other stuff to so we avoided that problem that we had in the past as well. But I couldn't agree with you more, Crypto, and that's kind of the point.
Yeah, I think that's very good perspective. I mean, I think going forward, the way to like help enforce these things and not like, you know, in a way we don't feel bad. Like if incentives are aligned enough, people should be more than willing to meet the goals in KPIs.
Yeah, I agree. What was I going to say? That actually leads on to quite nicely. So I'm going to thank you for that feedback. I'm going to try and get this budget proposal done. It's not going to be done today or tomorrow. Maybe over the weekend. Get it out next week. So folks can see. But that was a really good conversation from my perspective. I appreciate the feedback. But it kind of leads nicely on to like this other thing that's kind of hovering around for us. So there is a pretty interesting opportunity for the DAO to build its own RPC gateway on top of Pocket Network at the moment. There are a few different ways of doing this. The easiest way is like, for all intents and purposes, a significantly lower lift than this otherwise would be, because a lot of the infrastructure challenges are abstracted away from us and we would need to build an open source SaaS product on top of it, right? With most of the technical challenges of building this product, at least like the real technical challenges at the infrastructure level of building an RPC product abstracted away, the big challenge then, if we can build the SaaS app on top, is about brand and distribution, which the DAO has in bucket loads. I've been having this conversation, Billy's been involved in some of these conversations just to understand what the scope is. Sorry, my nephews. Understand what the scope is and like what we can do. So my current thinking on this is to document that all, put it out as like an RFC on the forum so people can kind of like comment on the idea, and then maybe the next step is to like put out an RFP and see if there's any groups of members that want to put themselves forwards to build this and like present a plan and how they might do it. But I think that's kind of like an interesting test case for kind of bringing these opportunities to the DAO and how we might tackle them, rather than it just like defaulting to sitting in labs, which it would have done in the last quarter. And like maybe labs or people in labs put a proposal to do it, maybe they don't, I don't know. But like the opportunity there, I think is real and interesting, and those organizations want to support us in making it happen. And I think it would be a cool thing for the DAO. So yeah, I'll stop talking, but like that's where we're at. That was my intention next step. So I wonder if anyone's got any perspective on that. And also if anyone wants to get involved in like the conversations and like setting up this stuff for the community to chew on.
Yeah, keep me looped in for this. I'm fairly interested.
The concept of like this approach of like an opportunity's come to the DAO, brief out that opportunity, present it to the DAO, see what the DAO thinks, and then maybe even like open up an opportunity. Manny, your mic's on, mate. Open opportunity for folks to then maybe pitch for that idea. Is that like conceptually something people, an approach people like the sound of, or don't like the sound of, I guess? Yeah, one with you, Mark. Okay, cool. I'm going to continue down that arc, basically, of publishing on the forum what I know of this opportunity and what the like criteria are and things to consider are, and then see how the community feels about, do we want to do this? And if we want to do this, like, what's the next step? And that's actually coming along nicely, so hopefully get that out soon.
I've got a couple of ideas about accountability. I can add them in the agenda, and it sort of touches on some of the things that you were talking about, though, about people being accountable for what they say that they're going to do. And it's actually, really in a nutshell, it was actually the bot, the mentorship bot that Alex has pretty much built for us. It's a little bit of testing that needs to be done on it, but that the idea was to create like a circular loop of accountability and that sort of self-incentivizing. And I'll have a think about it and see if it's possible for these sorts of things that you're suggesting.
Yeah, any and all ideas and information in that space I think are really good. I had a good chat with Manny a couple of weeks ago about like getting everything into tracking and like having the concept of like a directly responsible person for everything. So like, yes, Manny as in coding with Manny. And I think Manny's considering playing a coordination role in labs as well, with me coming into the moving out of that, and then we've got kind of Mark playing the coordination role in Academy as well. So and then Gordo in agency. So I like that idea of us like lifting stuff into a space where everyone can see it and having shared accountability around these things. But I think it's something that needs to be like a collaborative process that people like agree, have some say in, and then agree into how it works. So my current plan is to set this up and then kind of bring it to the folks that it's going to like most immediately impact, which is the people that are responsible for the work that's getting delivered already, and then see if we can settle on something that we're happy with. But this is kind of, I'm doing this quietly in the background for my work and labs work. I haven't spoken to Academy yet because I didn't want to open up the can of worms before the system had any legs. But it's kind of it's certainly helping me and the team in terms of scheduling as well at the moment. But there's sort of baby steps right now. But yeah, any and all thoughts and ideas and feedback in that space would be amazing. Cool. We're at time. I don't know if there's anyone else wants to get on the agenda before we wrap up. This has been recorded, by the way. I'm going to start posting these to YouTube, so folks can follow along if they miss it. Going once, going twice. Cool. Thanks, everybody. One thing. Are we going to have this call next week in between Christmas and New Year? Or do we want to have like a intentional gap, give people a bit of a rest? Manny, is that a yes, you want the meeting? I'm quite happy to do it, to be honest. This is true. Cool. What day is the 28th? Yeah, that works for me. I will commit to being here, and then I can commit to being here, and then others, if they want to, can come along. Though I'm probably not going to be doing much work between now and then that's like active in the DAO. Might be doing a bit more writing and thinking. Cool. All right. Thanks, everyone. I'll shut the recording off now, and we can all be DJs again.